So good day everyone. Welcome to the DevFest Caribbean 2022 Day 3 participating edition, the evening round, or maybe we could call it the night shift, kind of like that. Rated. So we have more talks for you today. We managed to get a stream, although the light isn't so good. Hopefully these people on stream can at least see the whiteboard and hear us okay. Right, so we have just three talks for you this evening. First speaker, let me just pull up is info here. Let's go on. First speaker is Ignacio Smith, or sometimes we call him as Robert, and he's going to give a talk on AIs, should we fail losing our jobs? So everyone please welcome to the stage Ignacio. You can just come around this way.
Yeah, all right. This one.
Okay.
Actually, it's
So let's look at the slides here. Spotlight. Right.
Yes.
And that's great. Size. So just click it.
what is the audience going to watch? The slides.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna get you on the slides.
Oh,
Or we
okay. So
just-
where should I stand?
You're actually good right there. Let's see. Come across. Yeah, you're actually good right there. So we're gonna get you like this. Something like this, yeah. And you control the slides right there. So you will have to click. Okay.
Excellent. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Google DevFest 2022. My name is Ignacio Smith, and I'm an advisor for the Private Finance Advisory Network, which is the United Nations Industrial Development Organization program, where we coach and advise entrepreneurs and project developers into securing financing. Essentially what we do with e-finance is that we get your project financed ready. But that's not the topic that we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about artificial intelligence and should we fear losing our jobs. And everybody actually thinks that with the advancement in the technology of the microchip, which has gone from say 12 nanometers to 9 nanometers to now it stands at 5, and subsequently in 2025 or so we will have the 3 nanometer microchip, and by the end of this decade we will probably be looking at the 1 nanometer microchip. What is that going to do for us? Well, essentially, we're going to have more advances in technology, and this is going to percolate into artificial intelligence. I like to speak about artificial intelligence because there's nothing artificial and there's nothing intelligent about it. I mean, if you ever come across an algorithm is nothing more than a mathematical function that you program in a laptop or a system, a computer system, to allow it to solve a problem by itself. When we speak about artificial intelligence, what we're really doing is we are creating all these different algorithms to solve problems so that at the end, the computer will be able to do the work on its own. But again, this is, in order to get to that point, you have to develop and write the algorithm. So it's not just like, okay, a computer, kind of like people think of the Terminator and how machines are going to take on the world. No, that's not going to happen. we would, in the artificial intelligence world, we would consider that a singularity. And that's not going to happen anytime soon. That's essentially why we are different than machines, because we think and we have a thinking process. So how does this all began? Well, the term artificial intelligence was coined by a professor at Stanford University. His name is John McCarthy. But the real father of artificial intelligence was a gentleman by the name of Frank Rosenblatt, who was a neuroscientist. And he was the one who came up with the concept of the perceptron, which is what you use in when you're dealing or building neural networks. Going back in time, I would say that this all began in the 1940s with the creation of the bomb. Also was the name that they gave the Turing machine. Alan Turing, who was responsible for breaking the Enigma code for the Allies during World War II. He developed a machine, and Alan Turing would be considered the father of the modern computer science. Fast forward, there were a couple of winters in the artificial intelligence arena or industry, and that was essentially because there was not enough computing power. Once the microchip started to evolve and we got to the 12 nanometer microchip and the 9 nanometer microchip, that is when the artificial intelligence industry really blossomed, because now we could do more with smaller spaces. Then, of course, we had this event that took place in 2012, and this is where we were able to really grasp what we could do with neural networks and different mathematical algorithms. But coming back to what is artificial intelligence, well, like every other industry, you have a hierarchy of needs. And these hierarchy of needs begin by logging instruments, having what everybody knows as the Internet of Things. Anybody familiar with the term? Yeah. Okay, there you go. So everything starts with the Internet of Things, which is really how you collect the data, whether it'll be in data points, or be images, or be on a film. And then you structure that data, and then of course, the most important process in the whole data science field, and this is where most data scientists lose most of their time, is in cleaning the data. Once you have cleaned the data and you have it properly structured, then you go to what we call the exploratory data analysis. This is where you're trying to find patterns in your data and trying to find common things within your data. And then, of course, once you have done your exploratory data analysis, then you move on to normally, we don't use A/B tested, but you can use it. We also do design of experiments, as statisticians will tell you. You would look at different groups and look at the averages of these groups, whatever element you're trying to determine, and from there you would use something called analysis of variance, one way or two ways, depending on what you're studying. And of course, at the end of all this, you have the top of the pyramid, which is the development of an application based on the data and the solution that you have found for your problem. That basically summarizes the where or what we do in artificial intelligence. Just take up the data, you crunch it, you structure it. After you structure it, you clean it, you do an exploratory data analysis, and then you go on to start testing different mathematical algorithms, whether they'll be supervised or unsupervised. If you're looking to do supervised algorithms, and you have many, I'll just go through a couple of them. If they're tree-based, then you will be doing expert gradient boost, random forest. If you're looking for linear supervised algorithms, then you would do logistics regression, linear regression, multiple linear regression, lasso regression, which I've never used, and ridge regression. And if you're doing unsupervised algorithms, then you would want to use something like k-means or k-nearest neighbor or hierarchical clustering, but you're basically just clustering. Supervised algorithms are very good for clustering, not for predictions. But normally you would use unsupervised algorithms for predictions. So if you're working on, let's say you're constructing a building and you want to establish what is your comfort zone within your sigmoid curve, which is what we call the S-curve in construction. You could do that using a supervised algorithm. You would try to construct a cumulative sigmoid curve and then establish your limits or your brackets where you know you could move within that sigmoid curve, and whether you'll be on time or you'll be ahead of time. But I can tell you, I worked in the construction industry for 15 years, and you never get a project on time. So that's a little far-fetched, but you try your best. So, what are the basic principles behind artificial intelligence? There's no secret. It's all based on distances. If you're looking at a supervised algorithm like linear regression or multiple regression, what do you base your solution on? Taking the point to an established line, or call it a projected line, and then squaring that point, the difference between what the line is and where the point is, so you take the distance, and it could be a negative distance. That is why you square it, and then you take the square root of it, also known as the root mean square. And what you try to do is you minimize the result, meaning the smaller your root mean square is, the closer you are to that straight line, which will tell you the R square will tell you, okay, yes, this is a good solution, or it's not a good solution. But at the end of the day, what you're doing is just taking distances. The same thing you will do with the natural language processing or image recognition. I come back to the point, if we're just looking at distances, we're looking at quantities, and these quantities are normally tokenized. And that is essentially what machine learning and all these different elements do. You either measure a distance or you tokenize the element in a way that will make sense, so that when you try to predict what you are trying to do, it will give you the correct result. So here I have come up with some examples. You have this unsupervised machine learning algorithm. Everybody knows this is probably the most popular one, k-nearest neighbor. What do you do on k-nearest neighbor?
you do interactions, you find a center point on the cluster, and then you do interactions as to move that center point until you get the good number of points that are close to that center point, and that's how you fix that specific cluster. Now, how do you know when is the ideal number of clusters? Well, we do this by the elbow law. As you increase the number of clusters, you start gathering the most number of data points. And there is an inflection on that, call it curve, of clusters that gives you the number of clusters, and where the inflection takes place, which could be on 3 clusters, 4 clusters, or 5 clusters, that will be your ideal number of clusters. So this is probably the most practical algorithm if you're looking to do classification. And it's the fastest, and it's really probably the best unsupervised algorithm that you can work with. Then we move on to linear regression, and again, you come back, you take the distances between the points and the line, and once you square them, you take the square root of it, you come up with a number. And the smaller the number, that will tell you whether you have a straight line on your points, and that will tell you whether your model is properly fit. Because there's something that we use in machine learning, and that is overfitting. You don't want to overfit your model, but you don't want to underfit your model. So there's kind of like a trade-off when you're doing the actual fitting of your model. And that's critical, because if you overfit your model, what can probably happen is that as you increase the number of data points to do predictions, your model will not give you the right scores, or it wouldn't give you the accurate prediction. That is why you need to be very mindful that when you are closing in or you're setting up your models, you don't overfit your model. And it goes for all different algorithms, not just for linear regression, but it also applies for unsupervised algorithms, support vector machines, logistic regression, any of them. And now we move on into an example of an artificial neural network, which is the principle that we took from Mr. Frank Rosenblatt, where you have the perceptors. Again, I'd like to ask the audience, what do you see in this slide? Linear algebra, there you go. It's all straight lines. Yes, in a neural network, you are going to have a large number of perceptrons and a large number of layers, but they're all straight lines. So what you do is very simple. You compute the different elements, because these straight lines are basic formulas. Y equals W, which is a weight that you assign to the perceptron, X plus B. So you add up all these different points up to what you're looking to derive as your answer, because you will have an answer at the end of running these interactions. And every time you run an interaction, you adjust the weights of the different elements on your straight lines. And at the end, after say 200 interactions, you get your response, you get the correct answer, you arrive at your solution. But neural networks, unlike unsupervised algorithms, you must have the end result in order to start computing them. Now, there's an interesting part about the use of neural networks.
How we adjust the weights is that we use something in algebra called the Gram-Schmidt process function, which is developing Cartesian three-dimensional vectors that move along. So the end result, after you do back propagation and you do it, say 100 times, is that you will arrive to something close to your minimum. So it's basic calculus. You have a minimum and a maximum. You're going to arrive to you, and you're going to come as close as possible to your minimum. And that is how you know you have arrived to your response, to your answer. It's all math kits, and there's no, and it's all based on distances. So I've already spoken about, in the case of neural networks, how they work, what is the mechanics behind neural networks. And now I will move on. As you can see on this slide, this is what you do. You have right there, that inverted delta is the gradient of the sum of the partial derivatives of x over the partial derivative of x in y. And that has to come as close as possible to zero. As you can see, you are trying to determine a maximum. Or in some cases, you would want to determine a minimum. But in this slide, you can clearly see that what you're dealing with is really straight lines. So how do we do it in image recognition? Well, it's somewhat different, but not so different. In image recognition, you divide the image in pixels. Depending on the amount of pixels, you can say, okay, I'm going to have 1,000 by 1,000. And each of these 1,000 pixels, you group them. That is called encoding. So you assign a value that is the sum of all those little pixels, and then at the end of the process, you decode the encoded image, and that's how you arrive to the final result. So it's really assigning a number to the pixels based on the color, and then encoding that group of pixels and then decoding it at the end of the process. Again, I come back to stressing that it's just tokenizing a pixel. You're not doing anything different than just assigning a value to that specific pixel. What happens in natural language processing? It's basically the same thing. You take up a sentence and you start looking at the positioning of the words, and based on the positioning of the words, you assign a certain number of tokens. So in my speech, what I'm saying now, you can construct different sentences, and all these sentences, depending on the positioning of my words, will have a certain value in terms of tokens. Now, at the end, what the computer will do is it will search on his database what element is similar to what I'm saying, and then it will give you an answer. So if I ask a question, it will respond to the question. That is how, anyone ever heard of Watson? Okay, there you go. That's how Watson works. Difference is that Watson was developed a long time ago. And Watson was limited to certain areas. Nowadays, we have something called GPT-3, and AI is working on, that's the name of the company, AI. It's funded by Elon Musk. Sorry, not AI, OpenAI is the name of the company. And they're coming out with a new system. It's called GPT 3.5, which is actually open source and will be able to talk to you like a normal human being because it's got, I think it's close to like 10 trillion different combinations. So once it searches on any of those 10 trillion combinations, it'll say, okay, this is what the person is trying to tell me. This is the answer to the question. Or this is the response that I need to give them in order to carry on the conversation. And the conclusion of all this is that we don't need to fear AI. All the applications. How many of you have worked with Quillbox? None? Grammarly? Yeah. Okay. Well, I use Quillbox and I use Grammarly all the time. But those are just two AI applications that are out there that are open source, that help you write better, that help you create better. But there are a long list. You have author. Right now, I can't even remember because there's so many. The AI space or the AI ecosystem has grown exponentially over the last couple of years. There's even an application that all you do, and it's open source by the way, you just tell it what you want it to write and what the topic is, and it will create the content for you on LinkedIn. So I mean, then you have, anyone ever heard of DALL-E? Yeah, okay. You have DALL-E. DALL-E is an AI application that all you do is all you tell them is you write in what you want in terms of what sort of artwork you want to have done, and the application produces it for you almost immediately. Then you have applications out there that all you do is just give them the book, and they will summarize the whole book, or they will summarize the article for you, so you don't have to spend time reading. All of this is not to take away jobs, but more of helping you be more productive and increase your levels of productivity. So this is why I said, let's not fear it, let's embrace it. And I thank you very much for attending the presentation, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you so much for that great presentation. It's a nice overview of the whole AI space and machine learning. So if I can just say a presentation is that a lot of these methods still very much rely on humans, and in a way they're just a representation of the intelligence of humans. So as long as it's so dependent on us, we should really have us affair.
That is correct. We should fear, because all these algorithms have to be written, they have to be coded. So you have armies of people just working on them, not just one person, but armies of people. Actually, in the project management space, you have something called digital project management, and you have something called Scrum, Scrum Master, and Agile project management. Unlike, call it a traditional way of project managing, when you do Agile project management, is you try to do several tasks at the same time. In project management, if you work in the construction industry, normally you would use a cascade form of project management, but in the software development or application development space, you use more of an agile way. You conduct several areas, or several, call it programs or subroutines at the same time, and then you put them together and see, you containerize it. I mean, there are many applications now where you can containerize your program and then you run it.
Right, excellent. Thank you so much for your presentation again. Can everybody put our Right, so we're going to move right along. The next presentation we have is from Dr. Letitia Anderson. She can't be here with us, but we have a recording to share with you all. And she'll be telling us about an event that she's promoting, which is called the Women in Data Science Data Fund. Okay? We just queued up.
overall social impact challenges, as I mentioned, with the datathon and the data set that is given. And we want to be able to boost participants' skills and confidence working with machine learning and data science in a very supportive and inclusive manner, and also be able to help increase the percentage of women involved in the datathons and, of course, hackathons, which are traditionally very male-oriented, and support beginners and, of course, persons new to data science. I mean, a lot of people hear the term and it sounds very intimidating, but we want to break down those barriers, especially for women to enter the field and feel comfortable to be able to enter the field and have something to leverage on in terms of their capacities that they can give in the workplace. And of course, we also want to recognize participation and achievement at multiple levels: beginner, intermediate, advanced, and beyond. So specifically in terms of the datathon, what this is going to do, the aim is to inspire, of course, women. And I would like to say it's not only women. We would like to elevate women, but males can also participate in the datathon as well. But there are there are some specifications that you need to meet in terms of the teams. But the actual event in terms of the datathon, which runs from January to January 4th to March 1st, 2023, it has different phases. So the first phase is what we call a predictive analytics challenge, which is hosted on Kaggle online. And that is focused on a single goal. Every year it's given a specific task that you have to do with a specific data set and variables in the data set. And then there's also a phase 2, which is more open-ended and a little more flexible in terms of you'll probably be writing a blog based on whatever social impact challenge there is. So in terms of the 2023 challenge, which is hosted on Kaggle.com, you can always go onto Kaggle.com to see the various competitions that are there, which are data science oriented. The teams for the WIDS datathon itself will comprise of at least 4 persons, at most 4 persons, and half the team must be female. So that's the specification. But we really do welcome males to be a part of it, because we all want to help each other in this process. And of course, the overall winning team, it's a competition. So therefore, the model that predicts the closest would actually be determined by a Kaggle leaderboard. So if you go onto Kaggle, you'll be able to see different leaderboards for different competitions, and you would see where persons globally taking part would have placed on that leaderboard. And of course, there are many benefits to being a part of it. I mean, you have prizes not only globally, but also regionally and locally as well, for the different women in data science ambassadors in their specific countries and communities. They would offer prizes to persons who participate. Now, in terms of the 2023 challenge, it's a climate challenge, and the data set itself is not live yet. It will go live on January 4th. However, we do know the theme, which is on climate change, focusing on open data, open science, and empowering low-resource communities. So a brief idea of the actual challenge is that the competitors will submit forecasts based on a data set with variables, including things like temperature, precipitation, etc., over a period of time. And you would compete against other teams, as well as your official forecast, to see how well your model predicts. So as ambassador, I am here to actually provide information as well as resources. So therefore, what my role is currently is to really bring the datathon to our local communities, not only in Trinidad, although I'm the TNT ambassador, also regionally as well. And the actual WIDS worldwide community and network provides resources and skills to participants in terms of data science, skill building resources. You have modeling and coding tutorials, and also access to mentors. And we currently have a call for mentors, persons who have programming skills, statistical skills, and would like to lend support in some way. You can be male or female, but we would really like to encourage the females to participate as mentors, and also to be part of a team to actually be in the challenge as well. And of course, there are a lot of benefits in addition to the prizes and certificates. It's a really great team building and data modeling exercise, especially to build up that portfolio and resume in terms of doing work that is both meaningful and also getting practice in terms of dealing with data sets. And of course, connecting and networking with others for a good cause is always really the main aim of all of these types of events. So just to close off, in terms of the quick overview, this is just a high-level overview, and you can always contact me for more information. It's through January 4th to March 1st of 2023 that the Datathon is live online on Kaggle. So the steps that you can take would be to join Kaggle, and of course, look out for when the dataset becomes live. If you would like to get a background of past competitions, you can actually look at some of the past Datathon pages on Kaggle itself, and it provides a very nice overview of everything. I also have a Google form, a sign-up sheet that you can use to get more updates and information. And feel free to contact me via withttdatathon@gmail.com, as I'm the current ambassador, and I'll be here to answer any questions you may have. So back to you, Nicholas.
Excellent, great. So I have a couple of questions with that. Maybe I
Sure.
could break it down for the audience. So I think like in recent days, terms like algorithms are become really popular. Basically everybody knows what an algorithm is, thanks to platforms like YouTube's. But in
Yes.
the AI world, there's this idea of models that we spoke about. Can you just probably briefly describe what is an AI model?
Right, and that's a really good question. I mean, of course, we know the algorithms give us that idea of the steps involved to achieve specific tasks. And when we speak of modeling in the AI world, and especially when it comes to data science, the modeling aspect really goes back to the foundation, which is really based in statistics, and actually starting off with looking at the variables we have and wanting to understand, what do I need to predict? Is there something here that could help me to predict some specific variable of interest? And in terms of that, we would be able to actually build out something very large. And well, I'm saying very large, but we could start small and build into something larger and be able to predict certain aspects. So the modeling aspect would really come from building statistical models themselves, which are inherently mathematical models. Hopefully they don't sound scary, but it's just to actually say, I have these variables, and then I have one target variable that I would like to predict. How well do these variables that I have predict that target variable, in a nutshell?
Awesome, awesome. So it's something like this structure here that's going to take some input. And I guess that's part of the challenge, figuring out which kind of input or data is important for the kind of prediction you want.
Yes.
Can you give a bit of an idea of like what that data set might have? I know you mentioned like precipitation levels.
Yes. Well, the data set is currently not live, so we haven't actually seen the full data set, but from the 2022 data set, I can give you an indication of some of the variables because it's actually a bit related. The 2022 data set was based on building energy consumption models in the US. And a lot of the data there had to do with things like temperature, things like the space, the size of the buildings, the location of the buildings, certain geospatial variables, demographic variables. And in terms of the climate challenge, as it extends more into a climate aspect, you would have more climate level variables. Aside from temperature, rainfall, precipitation, you may also have disaster events included. So it's really sort of honing in on trying to understand how to forecast based on these climate level variables for specific regions.
Great, great. So I know that, I don't know if you'll be able to answer on this one, but in terms of, I'm trying to remember the question, sorry. Maybe I'll just come back to that. So in terms of, you mentioned there's going to be a call to participants and a call to mentors.
Yes.
Maybe there's somebody coming up with some programming experience and they're just probably not sure whether they should be participants and mentor. And I know there's probably training for both groups.
Yes.
How would you advise someone to determine, whether they fall in one category or the other?
Okay, that's a great question. And in fact, at this point in time, if you want to speak from a participant level, if you want to start from the base level, anyone who has interest in data science can feel free to participate. And I know it sounds scary to persons who probably haven't really interacted with data on this level before, but we would provide a lot of resources, and we have teams where persons have different levels of skills. So we would say having some sort of background in terms of being interested in a quantitative sort of field is great. To be able to have a base in math, some idea of statistics in terms of probability would be great, but it's not it's not a full requirement. We will really want to bring persons in to have an awareness of what is happening and to really sort of understand that you don't need to be a perfectionist. You can start small, build from the ground up, and actually be given tutorials. So we will mentor you. And to blend from the participant aspect to the mentors themselves, we would have some expectation that you would have at least some level of programming background, be it in Python or some at least basic knowledge of programming and a basic knowledge of statistics. And we would also assist the mentors as well, because we're all helping each other. And we also have international resources that we can tap into as well. So if someone is interested in participating, once you have an interest in data science, you can feel free to sign up. For someone who's interested in being a mentor, once you have at least the basis of programming and some statistical background in terms of just basic statistics, descriptive statistics, that sort of things, visualizations, being able to create graphs, even itself, it's things like in Excel. I mean, I really love Excel. Aside from all the high-level programs, you can do so. So it's really a training process for everyone. So you can feel free to fill in terms of which group you think you really fit into. And one more point in terms of the mentors, we will give the mentors the opportunity to actually be part of a team as well. So they would be actively involved in the datathon with the participants.
Right, wonderful. So I like the amount of inclusion. And we know it's an event to promote women data science, but it's good that we can have men who can still help out and collaborate as well. And you have people at different levels, so whether they want to be a participant, where you'll start them at the ground up, or mentors a little bit further along their journey. And I remember the question that I had. I don't know if you'll be able to answer this.
I'll try.
Yeah, it's just more on the competition. I know, so everyone is going to be building their models. They'll get the same data set. They'll have this prediction based on the weather would be. And I guess the judges will have to evaluate, or maybe the system itself would compare with some prediction of another model. Or is it that they're predicting things that already happened in the past, so they kind of have the answers already to know?
That part of it, that's a great question. And in fact, that is something we can pose to the committee. Sometimes they will not give out all the nitty-gritty of the background.
Yes, for sure.
Exactly. But I do know from the aspect of Kaggle, once you upload your data sets, once you actually upload, well, these are the predictions that you got from your model. It has a comparison to a base model that they have working on the back end. So yes, to be able to compare.
Okay, so they got a model too. All right, so that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I want to make sure, and we, of course, this is what DevFest is for, promoting these kind of initiatives. I'm really happy to have you here to talk about the WITS Hackathon. I know things are coming up soon. We're going to help you promote the call to speakers, as well as any different various initiatives. Are there any last words you want to share with the audience, Mr. Shah?
Yes, so last words would be, I really would like persons to really take the opportunity, even if you feel unsure, there's no pressure, even if you came into the competition or you wanted to participate and you're not sure if you want to be on a team, even if you want to be just a part of the community that we're building, because we're going to actually provide workshops. A couple Saturdays in February, we'll have a few workshops with some international speakers. And then in March, we will also have a small informal panel discussion. So that will actually be helpful and very fruitful for persons who really just want to kind of get themselves, kind of get their appetites wet with what data science really can do for our community.
Excellent. So we're looking for it, and thank you so much for sharing this information.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's great. All right. So yeah, we're really happy to have Dr. Letitia Anderson come on and promote the WITS event. It'll be the first WITS event that's happening locally in Trinidad and Tobago. Women in Data Science is a global initiative, and she is Trinidad's first ambassador, if the memory serves me right, if I have that. I believe that's the case. Right? So we're really hoping to get a lot of involvement in this global data thought. And we can see where it goes from there. We'll be pushing out their call to mentors and their call for contributors as they become available. Right? So we're just about coming to the end of our evening session or the night shift, and we ended it off with a very experienced speaker who's no stranger to these DevFest events. I always look forward to his presentations, and you can always expect something cool. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Erwin Williams to the stage.
Alright, thank you very much. Hi everyone. If you are watching this online, you won't know if I'm lying or not. The room is packed. It's full. If you see people here, it's amazing. Woo!
Sure. Just be presented. I'll have to give you a duplicate view. On that.
Nice. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Nicholas Hernandez. I mean, to the point that he's making, the only reason he knows I have anything here representational skill at all, and I don't really that. But the only reason he knows that is because he's been here. In other words, he's been doing this for many years. I said this to him, I think, personally, sometime when I saw him, and I'm happy to say it in public. Thank you very much, Nicholas. Industries are ecosystems. Our industry in the region and in Trinidad is still nascent after many years because we're missing key role players. You can't just have the nerves to put their heads down and tell a personal story. All I want to do the day comes is write code. That's all I want to do. I don't want to talk to people, I don't want meetings, I just want to write code. Ironically, I can't do that. Because I lead a team, I have engineers who reports to me, I have a business to help run. I cannot do that. I accept that. And I think our industry needs to accept that we can't just write code. We can't just tell ourselves all we will do is write code. We have to find organizers like Nicholas, the groups like GDG, the stakeholders who care, and get them to have a seat at the table. It's not going to be sufficient for the developers. I think for a while, I think we're going to presentation in, I'm sorry. For the developers, we thought the meek and the coders would inherit the baby. That is not it. We actually need everyone. So I want to start really by thanking, of course, the host. I'm really Dalai Lama. This vibes. Nice to be here. And really encourage ourselves, encourage the industry to get up and be who we need to be. No one will come down and force us to be the thing we look at. I look at the conferences online, I look at the large auditorium filled with people and think, when will that happen for us? It won't happen until we decide we need more than the lines of code. I think my presentation will talk to some of that. So let's dive in. I'm talking about prompt engineering first of all, and if you don't know the term, you might think it has something to do with speed, rapidity, that you are quickly going to get things done. I would love if you take that away from this, but that's not what this is about, and you'll see. So I guess it's been an AI year, really, at least these 3 sessions have focused on AI. I can't remember his name. Ruben Smith, he started us off in the afternoon session talking about AI, and then there's a woman in data science, and now here I am, the least qualified to talk about AI, I guarantee you. But you'll see why I feel super confident to do it. As I touch my chest, this jersey is fire, get you one. Anyway, we'll come back to that later on. I'm on TikTok like a bunch of Generation Z, even though I'm not there, and TikTok knows who I am. So instead of sending me dance videos, it sends me this kind of stuff. Now you can't hear it, and that's okay, we need to hear it, to be honest. It's one of those TikTok videos introducing you to how to run your machine learning network. Your own machine learning model, how to build your own. In the video, it said if you don't understand, still watch it and have a good time, which I did. I barely understood it. It's Python, I can write Python. I don't know what it's doing, and the video is taking the mic, it's laughing at me because I don't know what it's doing, but I'm still watching it. And having a good time, I'm like, this makes sense. I have no plans to use this. Ruben presented a hierarchy of data science, like a hierarchy of machine learning. I love the hierarchy. I'm not anywhere near the peak. I'm somewhere in the middle. Yeah, I can collect data, and I can help you organize data. And maybe I could run some machine learning models, but I don't know anything about what it takes to create it from scratch for real. And yet, I did. I used the tool because really and truly, in terms of our ecosystem, developers like me, we are the tool users. Once you tell us how the API works, our minds are, we're grabbing to pull things together. We're grabbing to make things happen. Oh, you need a website? I don't know why HTTP works like how it works. I don't care about the protocol, but I can give you a website that delivers value. And we have to appreciate that. Somebody could write the model and somebody could use the model. I've been using models for a long time and I'm happy to. In this particular example, if you are from Trinidad and you bank with like I can't maximize it, and you bank with like First Citizens, they can give you a spreadsheet of your account activity. And every month, because I'm trying to be like not just a coder in my family, but like somebody who's financially responsible, I go through and I categorize things by hand like a whale. I wrote my own machine learning, let's call it a model, to categorize for me. If you're not proud, I felt. Anyway, let's start talking about prompt engineering. A bit on me, just before we go on. Most times in technical conversations, I play the architect role. If you don't know what that is, you might think he's the ideas guy. Not really. I help drive the shape of systems and how things should look and why it should look like that, and I have fun doing it. Because of my day job, I tell you, systems, a lot of my conversations have involved messages. Sending SMS messages, sending non-SMS messages, reliable delivery of services, a lot of it. Done it for many years, and as it turns out, I'm still curious about making it better. I don't know why, but I am. That's a lot of my day job. Beyond that, sometimes a friend might come to me and she might be like, listen, I'm doing a data science solution. This has happened. I know nothing about the cloud. What should I use? And in which case, I'm pulling resources together to deliver the solution. And I realize that doesn't feel like being an architect. It is, but it feels more like plumbing. It feels more like putting a bunch of things together to make data flow from one thing to the other thing to the other thing. And there are appropriate tools that you must know. I just moved into a house the other day and it was leaking. I was so happy it was leaking because I got to go to the hardware and buy stuff that I've never used before. Like there's a thing called a basin wrench. I bought that for no reason at all. I didn't need it. My wife is not watching this, so she doesn't know that. But I bought it happily. That's real plumbing, but I'm more of a cloud plumber and I have fun doing it. But those two things are really me as a professional. As me, I can deliver that value. Pay me money, we have a good time. But I also experiment. And when I experiment, it's much more like this. It's falling down a hill. It's trying to understand. It's trying to get started. It sucks. But it's something I also like to do. And so we'll see why I think prompt engineering is significant for me, and I think for everyone else. Trying to figure out how to learn new stuff can be hard. First of all, you have a day job, right? You're an architect, or you're a cloud plumber. You don't really have space to go learn React Native. You understand? You just spend 5 years learning PHP. You just figure out how to install the latest Laravel. You are in the Laravel community, and a man come and tell you, no, you now need to go and learn Rust. What? When are you going to do that? So for me, that's going from ideas of the latest thing to actually doing something new. And it has to look like this for me. You hear about the thing somewhere, maybe on social media. And then you go and you pass to Google it. Nowadays, what I do is I go to social media and see what people are saying about the thing, because I'll find tutorials there. Like I started the presentation, I'll find a video on neural networks, I find a video on Rust, or a video on Node, or a video on the latest thing, and then begin to work through learning it, tutorials and walkthroughs and SDKs. And my God, it could take long. It's a slog. To go from not knowing because some youth man, because I'm no longer a youth man, unfortunately or fortunately, to go from where I am to what that youth man did, it's trouble. And it could take a while. And eventually you start to do this stuff, It looks horrible, it is not appropriate for production, badly, and eventually gets less bad, and finally it's okay. You wouldn't call it good. In that process, it's long and horrible. So for me, I found that architect last year in GDG, I presented on trying to do something with Microsoft Teams. Because often I come to these events and I've been talking about chatbots and messaging. Because it's vibes to me, right? The thing I presented on last year took me about 2 years to figure out. It was something related to automating the video stream in Teams, and I was super excited. I mean, nobody else cared, but I was super excited and glad for the audience who was kind. Right? But it took a long time. So, what's prompt engineering? I saw someone say, I can't remember who, it's like playing charades with AI. So it's not, as I said, how quickly you can type, thankfully. It's not how many lines of code you can create, because if you listen to what happened in Twitter these days, that seems to be the metric to keep your job, and this is not what we're talking about at all, right? Instead, let's define a prompt, which is straightforward. It describes what you want in a sentence form. Dear concierge, I'd like a drink, please. Simple prompt. I would like to fix my glasses, please. Stuff like that. You know what I mean? Straightforward. So, I'm attaching prompt to something we mentioned a while before, GPT-3, right? So, prompt design literally is the thing that allows you to utilize these very new, very amazing models that are available now. Remember the hierarchy that Ruben presented? I'm not at the top. I'm not really building production models yet, but it's fine. I can use them really well because my imagination is amazing. And I need to look at my discipline to get to the top. But for now, great ideas in search of implementations, right? So, prompt engineering is here to help me and I think the rest of us. Because once you can put together these two concepts, you're gonna have a good time. Sorry for all the text. Don't read it. All it's saying is that GPT-3 is the baddest, bestest, most popular AI model ever created. Why can I say that? I'll tell you in a little while. But anyway, it's scary good, right? More text. In case you're the kind of person saying, I can't listen to it because I'm saying GPT and I don't know what it is. If you are that person, they're the words for you. The rest of us are not, so you can always find that out later on by checking. Anyway, let's start off and continue, in prompt engineering by looking at one of the very popular ones, DALL-E. So, I'm jumping into DALL-E 2 because that came out at the last year or this year, very recently, right? Came out last year, and the amazing thing was being able to, there's something about text, there's something about delivering commands. If you look at my personal blog, I've written about Jarvis, because what Tony Stark did with Jarvis impressed me way back in 2008, and it wasn't even real. He's talking to this thing and it's just producing results. DALL-E 2 is that for images. Produce a prompt, like the one that says, give me an image with bokeh, shallow depth of field, blur, autofocus background, and boom, you get that rabbit in the middle. Or, the one on the left, these are all generated images. This idea of simply speaking the thing into existence feels very biblical. But it actually works. It works. You need to get some practice, and as it turns out, people have been given guidance on how to get good at prompts. Remember, a prompt is just a sentence. I would like X or Y. And now we have prompt books. We have prompt sites. If you go to Reddit, there are examples of how to be really, really creative with your prompts. And of course, it's not, the technology isn't waiting for you to figure it out. By the time that was announced, OpenAI was mentioning we have updates to DALL-E 2. You can modify actual images. Like you can give me a starter image and tell me extend that image. So really, what jumped out at me? So at first people were afraid because is it the end of graphic design and graphic designers? Have they lost their jobs? Well, let me use another personal example. My wife is a costume designer. She is excellent with all things visual, right? She could model your house, she could pick the best color for your car, she could make your clothes look good. She did not design this jersey, so if you think it's horrible, that's on me. But if it's great, it's all good. The point is, she's great at all things visual. If you give her DALL-E 2, the things that she would conceptualize to prompt, they're on another planet for me. So the first thing to appreciate with prompt engineering is if you think, oh my God, my job is in question, you might not have understood what your job was. Your job wasn't ready to be a copywriter. Your job was to deliver the value of a proper story to a client. And if this thing could give you your client's story in 2 minutes as opposed to 2 days, take the win. It's a win. You just get more clients. Your rates might go down because somebody else who wasn't as good as you may be able to produce work that might be better than yours in the short term. But you can fix that. You just have to be willing to change and adapt. As it turns out in our industry, we thought we had a lock on that. In software development and in IT, we thought our industry was you move, we move, you dance, we dance. This stuff with prompt engineering and DALL-E and GPT showing me that I might be found flat-footed if I take too long. So, prompt engineering and the models that are created, in my mind, they're a net positive for the current professional. See, the persons who are learning, you see, you in school and you don't know where your career is going to be, you have a different challenge. We'll come back to that. But if you are currently a professional in any of these fields, your world should have blown up. Because all of a sudden, it's like you have assistants. It's like you have your own Jarvis in the context of, I have an idea, and I want to see what it looks like, and I don't want to spend 2 days drawing it out. You're going to take 10 minutes to draw it out. Now you've done that, what's the next thing? That's what it hits me like, we need to see this thing. Before I go on, this is still new. And that point, issues including licensing and access to source affects all of the models under consideration. Where did they get those images from? There are artists right now online who are mad because a model was created or it was fine-tuned, and to fine-tune an existing model is to take a model that is a base foundational model and refine it for a specific purpose. So let's say you were doing sweetbread comics in Express. That's a style in Trend Express. If you read the Express, you know sweetbread. It's a local comic guy, it's been around for a long time. If someone were to take his works and fine-tune it into DALL-E, all of a sudden you have your own bakery because it's sweetbread every day. But the problem is he need not have your permission. Now that's a problem for licensing, a problem for creative works. So there are problems. It's not all easy. It's not all fun and games. But at least you need to know how it works as a professional, especially a visual professional. If you hear about it and think, that's the enemy, I will never use that. I suggest to you, you're going to calcify your position. You might not like it, at least you need to know it. And you need to know of these issues, because there are many of them. But that doesn't stop the rest of the world from running after it and trying their best to capitalize on it. So, for example, there are prompt marketplaces. You can go and buy prompts. I saw one guy talk about a prompt NFT. That's a bit too much for me. But the point is, people aren't waiting. What I like, as I said, is what this prompt engineering does in the DALL-E context. Is the what happens if becomes a natural part of your work. What happens if you combine a horse and a pigeon in an airplane? I don't know. Let's look. What happens if you wanted a bar feel like this, named Dalai Lama, and you want the bar full of llamas and a man riding it, looking like Dalai Lama? Where we get that from? You can spend your time drawing it out. Or you can just say to DALL-E, fill a bar, fill this space, and upload an image to you. fill that image with flowers with a diamond. Just because they want to see what happens. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And DALL-E 2 is not the only game we market. You can go to DALL-E 2 online via OpenAI site. You can use Midjourney. And I love how Midjourney works. Midjourney works via Discord server. That's vibes. Remember the guy coming talking about chatbots every year? So the fact that they chose Discord as their mechanism for delivery, I love that. There are issues with, as some people think, I don't think how OpenAI chose to limit my creativity in DALL-E 2. And for those people, there's Stable Diffusion. It's properly open source. I downloaded it the other day. I have an Azure instance. I use Azure ML. And I ran it myself. I felt very proud because remember where I am in the hierarchy. I don't know what to do now. I don't know what the algorithms are, but I have them and I can do what I want with them. This particular background image is a dude who trained Stable Diffusion with his own images and generated his own version of Steve Rogers. I tried it myself and I didn't get far and I was very annoyed. But kudos to this dude. Let's move on. Now, a lot of us are developers, and I want to spend a little bit of time here talking about text to code because it's a big deal for us, right? Give me 1 second. Can you grab my glass and back there, please? Thank you so much. So, I would have heard of DALL-E 2 and thought amazing. I also probably thought tough luck. Tough luck for our designers who thought, thanks so much, right? Who thought, my life has come to an end. I didn't think that. I might have thought tough luck. I wasn't worried about me. But then watching Microsoft build this year, I saw Copilot and I saw this human. I wish you could hear it. And it's okay. It's okay with the flow with it. This human is 17 years old, 16 or 17. He is using GitHub Copilot. That youth man is writing code with Copilot. Just let that sink in for a bit. A 17-year-old is learning to code and he's been learning for a long time. I think he said since he was 8 or something like that. So he's already a developer to some degree. He's adding to his development Copilot. While you might be saying, me go and pay $100 a year for my Copilot because it might feel expensive. Copilot right now it's no longer in beta. It's out in production. It's $100 a year. You might say, why would I pay for that? Why would I bother to try to learn that? Because that young man learning to code since he was 8 or 10 or whatever, added to his tool set Copilot. What do you think will happen? You might be very good at code. I'm pretty good at the code I write when I have space to write it. But that's meaningless if I'm taking 5 days, he's taking 2 to write similar levels of code. So, prompt engineering. I want to spend some time on Copilot. This dude is using it for unit tests. So he's saying, and if you're not familiar with what Copilot is, it's a GitHub, it's from GitHub, it's a VS Code extension. As you type, you might be familiar with IntelliSense or in IntelliCode or Code Assist type things. You type and if you type up and you're using a library, and you type the library, you type dot, you see a method name and you're excited about that. I remember back in the days when I first met that, we were using something called jQuery to age myself. And with jQuery, we were using the student version. There was no dot and C method name. So when I first saw method names in an IDE, I was like, this is amazing. And then IntelliCode came out, and it was like, what is this? Now, you type a method name with the right description, which is the prompt, and all of a sudden you have the whole method. And this will say when I'm testing my code, 90% of it is via Copilot. So what I found a study, some researchers asked, how are you using this thing to professionals? What are you finding? And this dude was saying, when it went down for some reason, the image in my mind for this dude was, imagine you often run through, that's actually happened to me recently. You often go on hikes with long pants because they have grass and have razor grass. You remove co-pilot and now be in the forest with short pants. That's the image I had here. And you realize how it's like spell checking with. Imagine trying to do a full document not having spell check. That feeling, co-pilot brought that to developer. Save this is essentially saying it saves time. Right? The context for co-pilot these days still has to be narrow. You can't just say, I want a class that creates long points for me to take note of some particular event as a location. You can't just do that. You can try it, but you find yourself some problems. It's much more for the narrow focus. We will come back to that. This dude said, I'm not even using a search engine. I have to wonder what Google is saying. What is your plan? I'm looking forward to Google's I/O next year. Because these tools are coming for your experience in searching. I don't need to go and search. Prompt, and I go on. And as you'll see in a little while, if the prompt isn't good, just write a better prompt. And this dude will say the last one. You can imagine the use of Stack Overflow, guys. You can imagine all the time your usage is like you're on the top sites in the world. And then all of a sudden, usage just declining. Month on month. Nothing wrong, your system working fine. But the users just don't come to your front door. It's because they buy co-pilot alignment. Now, it's not only a professional's thing, and we should be aware of that, especially an educator. Prompts and prompt engineering and GPT is doing some significant damage to what you think of in education right now, because you can give co-pilot questions that typical CS students get, and it will have answers. Not 2% of the time, almost 80% of the time for the questions they used, co-pilot gave full answers, gave accurate answers. If you look at that table there, if the column that says verbatim, is you give it the question, and out of 166 questions, 79 times it got it. The other modified bit is when they change the prompt. Because essentially what Copilot does is it takes the text prompts and then it adds the next word. It adds the next word. It adds the next word. And as it turns out, people like that. Students in particular. So you as an educator, you have some questions to ask. How do you know the assignments you get were done by your students? I was talking to Kenny a while back and we were talking about Trinidad's response to the pandemic. Instead of realizing there's a whole world out there that you could grab onto and be more efficient, be more productive, just be amazing, we went back. We decided, oh, pandemic done, back to normal. Not for everyone, for many of us that's not the case, but for some that was their approach. Will schools go back? Will educators say, oh, you know what? Exams are now de rigueur, come right, because we can't trust where assignments come from. And do you think students will treat that like, yeah, this makes sense? There are questions that schools have to ask because of prompts and more effective ways of engaging with artificial intelligence and machine learning. I'm using my regular natural language and getting answers to questions I could not before. And actually make all of us aware and somewhat concerned. Now, my plan was to kind of talk about prompt engineering in all kinds of spaces, right? all of a sudden there's text to audio, and there's text to poems, and text to full LinkedIn posts, right? You just enter some prompts, and all of a sudden you're there. There's even text to math. Give me a differential equation to do X or Y or Z, and all of a sudden it exists. This is stuff I saw this year. These articles came from news reports I saw week on week over the last, let's say, 20 weeks. This is not stuff from last year. This is all current vintage. Prompts are here. And I love this post. There is a sort of a reckoning happening to various industries. Because the GPT, if you want understanding what your value add is as a copywriter, you will not be a copywriter. If you thought the work was because you like to write this prose describing how longitudinal works, that's not it. If you thought your work was finding the best stock images on a website, if you thought your work was transcription, AI is coming. But not just AI, it's this approach to AI. So to me, what I really wanted to come to DevFest, because this is the only one of its kind in the country, I don't know anything else like this happens. So I wanted to come here to wave a flag saying there is a red wedding of sorts coming. And what are we going to do? What happens when you find out a young man who coded for 2 years? Producing at a level of thought that took you 5 years. So you might as well take your 5-year-old self and grab onto the tool and understand how it can make your life easier, your life better, as opposed to ignoring it and trying to fight with the machine. And then this happened. Right? This happened. So I'm sorry if you can't see it properly. But this was me asking ChatGPT to describe prompt engineering. But in a poem, just because I was wild. We're not going to read it. The point is, it wrote me a poem on prompt engineering that I just randomly thought of doing. Was ChatGPT. Here's how I want to answer what's ChatGPT. By the abundance and the unrelenting onslaught of TikTok videos that have been telling me what ChatGPT is. I didn't see this in the news. It just, all of a sudden, this thing was released, and you have a developer who's doing a Starfield simulation in a coding language. That's okay. It does, yeah.
It's prompt engineering.
Might be. Oh, you know, might be.
Your audio though?
Problem might be me.
Yeah. So clear.
Holy moly. Oh yeah, another day, another AI. Today we're going to make a Starfield, like,
Try it again.
we're going to create something like this. Or we're going to try anyway, right? A script. Create a full screen hyperspace.
If I mute, it'll mute the output to you as well. I mean, I've been flowing. Here's why. Here's what he's doing. He's using, I don't remember what library. It could be, can't read the library, it could be P5, to generate a Starfield by issuing prompts to ChatGPT. I haven't said what ChatGPT is. Let's say, this happened to me. Every day I open my TikTok to line up at the time, barrage. Another dude, Vex. Why he Vex? You're not really Vex. He's telling you, hey, ChatGPT is here for your copywriting job, right? This guy is talking about remote code interviews, because imagine if someone tells you, hey, let's have this remote code interview, and they give you the challenge, and as soon as you just You can just take the code they're asking you to write, submit it as a prompt to ChatGPT, and it's game over. Now you can get around it. You can say, give me a screen share as you write the code. There are ways around that. Point is, modes of operation for us have changed. It's just all kinds of people telling me, ChatGPT is here. It's here, it's here. And so for me, he's continuing to art with AI. For me, I thought I need to do this, right? So I jumped into it. So in fact, I paid for OpenAI. I just took my money out and said, don't charge me more than $5 a month. They didn't really mean it. But I stuck in my credit card there because you had to get in. You have to see how it works. So this is ChatGPT is currently in beta. Don't pay for it. Just go and sign up and use it. Go sign up and use it, and 1 million users have done so in a week. It was launched last week, Wednesday, and 6 days later, 1 million users. I think it's one of the fastest user growth rates ever.
Invest in it,
Well, it's built by OpenAI, so people who invest in it already. I believe you do more than Microsoft and Elon and the rest, right? But the point is, this thing is here. So why am I choosing to demo building a Mobius wheel? Because I just saw one this morning. I was like, hey, that'd be cool if you build that out. These are the prompts it took me to get to having a Mobius wheel, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the actual text. What did it produce? In 1 sec. Mobius, right? Python, -m. Right, I'm just posting that page on my machine, right? And what I'm going to do is, I think that was localhost port 8000. It gave me that. I don't know how to do that. I choose to keep very few programming languages in my mind. For the most part, when I think programming, I think C#. For the most part, my day job is C#. I write a lot of C#. I don't know Python. I barely know JavaScript, and I could write some. I don't know TJS, and I certainly don't know what it takes to do this. But I have a sense of the concepts. I remember writing code for a long time. So we understand the concepts. So when I hit OpenAI, these prompts, OpenAI know what to do. What did it do exactly? I want to show you what it did, right? Give me 1 second. It did this. When you close this, all right, not nobody cares. Right. This is my prompt. It gave me code. This is my prompt. It gave me more code. I want to underscore. Look at the prompts. And I know nothing about 3JS and nothing about mesh environments. Nothing about that thing, that Mobius wheel. I just saw a guy on Facebook. Remember how I started the presentation? I have ideas, and I just want to execute it. But to execute them takes me days or weeks or months. If I were doing this by myself, it would take me maybe 4 hours to a full day. If I just sat down, I want to make this Mobius strip. This took me moments. Now, let me tell you why it took longer. It took longer because ChatGPT itself is under pressure. Like, it's very popular. So like you might go issue a prompt and it might be like, yo, we're busy, give us a minute. But you understand, if I have access to a ChatGPT that's industrial and ready for my use cases, these prompts will take me moments. This is not a morning of work. This is we're in a brainstorming meeting What would a Mobius wheel look like? And you have it in the meeting. This is doing something, and I don't know what it is. It's doing something, and at least we need to be there when it's doing. And there are multiple levels of doing. The first level is at least go use the prompt system. At least go use ChatGPT. Right? So I want to end it. Because I've been talking for a long time and I'm sorry. I'm not going to play the video, but one of the things this does for me is it takes me out of the office. Remember I said I like to write code, but calm down. I don't know if it's code I like. I think I like solutions. I think I like making people happy. I think I like this idea that if you have a challenge of a technical nature, come to me and you will leave happy. So if ChatGPT is giving me the ability to do that quickly, then I need to stay 4 hours in my office. The reason this video is here is because the professor who recorded it realized that there were silos being developed. And the biggest silo was computer science. It was hiding away in a corner with its machine learning and its AI and its databases, and it's just hiding away from the rest of academia. And he was saying, no, you need to integrate. You need to get out there and be where the people are. Now I can remember what I said. I saw this Mobius strip on Facebook. Moments later, I could have replied saying, hey, look how cool this thing looks in real life. Because of prompt engineering. It makes me more prompt. No pun intended, but I'm taking it where it is. So, we shouldn't be telling ourselves we're dead in the industry, dead, and we're gone. We should be saying there's a big change being forced on us, but we like the change. This is a good change. We need to develop a new mindset. And one of the things that jumped into me, you see I mentioned this idea of Julie Mango. Here's why. I learned only recently that apparently Julie mangoes aren't grown from seeds in the ground. And the Julie mango tree you see is because it was grafted. Maybe that's not true, but I love it for my story. Because what it means is to get real value, which is Julie, because that's the best mango on the planet. To get real value, you have to graft it, you have to think different. So similarly, we were trying to get value by writing all the code ourselves, and now we find that maybe there's another way coming. There are many issues. Right now, GitHub is being sued because of GitHub Copilot, because of licensing issues. I'm not offering an easy road at all, and as I said with ChatGPT, the journey is fraught because even right now the tool doesn't work well. But by the time you wait for it to either work well or for it to be decimated, the industry would have changed. My curiosity on this Julie protocol is simple. My curiosity is, can we figure out how to make this thing much more relevant to us? Both in the context of, well, what is prompt engineering? Go figure it out. What is ChatGPT? Go figure it out. But I did a funny test with ChatGPT last week. I asked it, do you know what gala apples are? It said, yes. I said, okay, give me a comparison between gala apples and Granny Smith apples. And it gave me 5 paragraphs easy. Then I said, give me a comparison between Julie Mango and Stash Mango. And it said, I don't know what you're talking about, sir. I cannot help you. Now, as it turns out, ChatGPT is foundational, which means you could fine-tune it, and you could put the data there. But somebody still has to do it. And so for us in the region, us in Trinidad, us in a small island, I don't think OpenAI cares about what we do in left or right. And therefore they won't care about our data sets. They won't care about our concerns. They won't care about Julie Mango and Stash Mango. But we are the care. This is our concern, this is our community, this is our data. And so there's another burden on us. The burden of understanding really and truly how to make your own ChatGPT. Because it's not sufficient to simply be a model user. I admit that, I know that. You have to do the next thing. Thankfully, we actually have data science professionals, we have data science PhDs, data science MSCs, we have skilled practitioners. So we have the ability to do it. And I think I'm using this opportunity to say, let's get it done. I think I'll end there. And that's my last slide. In conclusion, be true.
Interesting. All right. So thank you so much for that excellent presentation. Really food for thought. As someone who does teaching, I am absolutely terrified by this. I showed it to my head department, and specifically ChatGPT. I know he didn't want it to talk about it in this conference. I don't think the students are watching though, but yeah, ChatGPT is a chatbot. And it solved all of my assignments, it solved all of my projects, it can do any of our exams, it's exceedingly well with computer science topics.
Yeah.
Right? And it really made me wonder, what's going to make it for academia. I have some thoughts about that. What do you think how we should approach assessing and evaluating students' work should change in the advent of this kind of technology?
So I can share the references afterwards, but thankfully that specific question is being pursued in research now. There's a bunch of research outputs. So the one I mentioned is researchers, they did this, find out how does this thing handle CS1. In that paper, there are insights. I don't think generative development is going to die. This idea of using models. So the question for us may be asking what's the value we want to create in the minds of the students, and what do we want them to create? Because the value isn't the lines of code. It probably has never been. The mindset shift for us, so we're lecturers, we're educators, we're hiring developers, and you want to know you're hiring developers of a particular level of talent. It more than likely might be, in the early days, leveraging our humanness differently. We may need to create smaller circles. How do you validate humans for real? Part of why we're here in this room is because this interaction still feels much more real than having a meeting with teams. If your classes aren't too big, then there's a way to break into and leverage a humanness to evaluate if that person knows what they're saying. And so to me, it's honestly, standing where I am on the outside-ish, it sounds like you guys have a fun time at it.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely see the scalability. Courses, our program concerns like one of the fastest growing in the faculty and probably university. I'm marking for programming one course is like over 200 students.
Wow.
And we always try to figure out, well, how can we really assess students are bringing up work? How do we know they really did it? And yes, we have things that we can do like exit interviews, just talk to them after the interview, you can really know, but then scalability.
But you know that's what I found as well. I love that. Remember, we are in Trinidad and Tobago, we're in an island that ChatGPT don't really know much about. I love the idea of associating our assignments with very specific local issues.
Right.
And apparently, as we saw even in the research, Copilot doesn't get right 100% of the time. There are particular kinds of conceptual challenges that just aren't good for generative pre-trained models. It just doesn't work. So the idea of shifting from rote responses to conceptual things. Right. So instead of reproduce the insertion sort algorithm, it might be explain to me why insertion sort would help with the traffic problem on Rice. Because that's a concept. Yeah, you have to probably pull it up a little bit and use other mechanisms. For example, if you know ChatGPT exists, you might demand your students go understand how to prompt properly. You send them to it, and they come back with the accurate prompts.
So that was the idea I was thinking about because I teach a software engineering 2 course. So we do design patterns, and when the question was, how do you apply this particular design pattern to this kind of problem? And students bust their brain on this, right? Going back and forth weeks and weeks. I gave it to ChatGPT with less context than the students fully understood, gave me full solution. I didn't like certain parts of it, and that's like the magic of the AI, the refinement. I could watch it and say, hey, wait a minute, nah, I don't like this. Okay, they did this wrong. And I would say, oops, my bad, take this, and it actually finishes it out. So that kind of speaks to like the refinement and how do you think in terms of prompt engineering, because a lot of people say, oh, well, if you just do this prompt engineering stuff, you're going to get things wrong, so you should really, it's inaccurate.
Yeah.
But my argument is those with the relevant experience to be able to validate the output and fine tune. So it shouldn't be discarded right away.
Yeah. Which is why the idea in my mind is that professionals now benefit a lot from it. I know when the code is bad. When Copilot generates something that is not appropriate, I can tell because we've been doing it. We know what it is. A more junior professional may need help, and that's perfectly fine. This idea that there's inaccuracy that may last a very long time. So that may actually be one of the reasons why you still need expertise. You still need to go learn to read books. You can't just rely on what the AI says, and therefore to action other method to ensure that students get the right learning. Don't ask students to write hello anymore. It doesn't make any sense. Ask them why this thing makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think you still need fundamental concepts. You still need background. So just because somebody can look like a developer without any training, because it's able to kind of get a prompt, a really seasoned developer will be able to really look at it and judge the output. Because while it might take us a long while to get the right code, it doesn't take us very long to identify what's wrong.
Yeah, so as I said, check on the research. There is a lot of it happening right now. If you are jumping into this prompt engineering world, it should be because you are understanding the context around. In other words, you're getting more time. The more time you're getting should be applied to figure out what's really going on as opposed to thinking, I have more time to learn.
Yes, awesome. So we're just opening for what there's one or two questions from the audience.
So I just wanted to add that you need to know the basic concepts.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have just said something that is so true. Using it without knowing the basic concepts is, you'll be able to produce something, but anyone who's seasoned and looking at your work, they will know that it's not an original work.
Yeah.
Just reactivating this point as an online audience. Just saying that, we need seasoned developers, so we seasoned people who know the concepts will be able to truly validate the output, right? So you really still need that in order to use this effectively. Well, thank you for today. I think it's a really good session. This live stream just came together last minute. I really want to thank Stephen Wu for setting us up. I met this guy literally 2 days ago, and he brought all this mic and speaker, and basically we were streaming, right? So, of course, I want to give just a general vote of thanks. So thanks again, man. Right, so that brings us to the end for DevFest Caribbean 2022 Day 3 Participating Edition. Of course, they have a wider scope of events. We have Guyana coming up tomorrow and the day after. Just look at it on DevFestCaribbean.com. You can get the full agenda events and links to the stream. I want to give a thank out to all the organizers who pushed in and made things possible. Chantal is right here, really helping me out with the venue. Maria is working behind the scenes. And there's so much other name like Sean as well. Thank you to the other organizers. Thank you to the speakers. Of course, it's not possible without you all. Thank you to the venue. Dada Hammers with excellent work for us. Just look at this place. It's really amazing. So, and of course, thank you to the guests for coming out. I know we had a lot of issues with the postponement, and it's right after the World Cup, that crazy World Cup game, right? So, congrats to Argentina for moving forward, right? But yeah, that brings us to the end of today. Thanks again for coming out, and we will see you all in the next one.